Wireless, cloud-based, booyah-based, super-duper, loop-de-looper, high-speed, download, overloaded, overstuffed, connected, unconnectedness. Surely this is better and different.
We have been so excited to share these with all of you. Imagine a cowboy frog. That's awesome.
Snap wants to flex because they've been acquiring companies. So this is one of those products where they're doing two things. They firstly want to show to shareholders, look, we've got incredible tech. My opinion is I don't think that's the right strategy. I'm surprised because I was expecting them to go back to their roots a little bit, to go back to the fashionable minimalist, like the Meta Ray-Ban, because Meta Ray-Ban's been quite successful. But I think it's become quite clear that if you want a mass market product today, you want to go for the constrained version of this product. You want something that fits in a normal size glasses, something that people would be willing to wear today. And then the futuristic stuff will follow through.
And welcome back to another episode of the 100-Year Podcast. My name is Adario Strange, and this week we have with us someone who is in the, I would call it, emerging AI wearable space, Farbod Shakouri from Phantom in the UK. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And so you're in London, or is it
No,
outskirts? Or?
Just above London in Cambridge, that place with the university.
Okay. All right, great. So just, I want to kind of like, this is a very, how can I say, it's an obscure topic for many people, consumers out there, because, you know, they've heard about AI, they know about ChatGPT. Some of them have heard about, I guess, the Ray-Ban smart glasses, but even that is still kind of like limited in its penetration in terms of mainstream success. So I want to get into kind of like a mini brief history of smart glasses, like of the last, I guess, 5 years, I'll say. But before we get into that, just tell us a little bit about yourself. So Phantom, founded in 2019. Give us the backstory. Like, who are you? What's your background? Like, how this come to be?
Happy. Let's do that because that's a fun story always. So, founded in 2019. My co-founder and I, Dan and I, we went to Bournemouth University and we actually studied games technology. So we come from a game tech background, and that really involves game engine, 3D graphics, AI, a little bit of interaction design and human-computer interactions. Those things have always been very interesting because they can spin out into different directions. So a lot of the people who do games, of course, will go into the games industry, but a few of them will end up going to simulation, right? They'll go into architecture, they'll go into visualization, some will go to AI. So I find games to be one of those really interesting intersections of different technologies, and you can kind of choose what to do next. Him and I, Dan and I, worked together at uni. We actually did a sort of a, I guess you could say, a mini startup while we were at university, where we built a game called Timebreaker. And this was, with no budget. We just made it on a mobile platform for iOS and Android. It was fun. Him and I and a bunch of other friends. And then in about, a few months, we put it out on the market, and it hit nearly 100,000 downloads. And so we just were like, wow, this is a great start for any entrepreneur, right? You get that moment of, we could do so much. Like, there's so much impact you can have with just writing some code. But that was a fun game. And then from there on, we went to different directions. I went into AR research. He went into VR and AR startup. So for me, what really transformed my view of AR and the sort of mixed reality industry happened a little bit before Pokemon Go. But when Pokemon Go came out, I think that really set the standards for what we viewed games and AR sort of to be, and location-based gaming in particular. So I started a PhD, but it's actually called an MD, because the way it works is that you get a couple of years of placement in a company. So I went into a company called PlayFusion. This company was founded by some of the ex-Jagex employees who, the company Jagex, if people aren't familiar, is the company behind RuneScape, which is one of the, if not at one point, it was the biggest massive multiplayer online game. And I went and I learned a lot from these guys. But while I was there, I was working on an AR engine. So doing some AR research, working on an AR engine. And so for me, it was always about figuring out what are the biggest problems to solve in AR. And at the time, the biggest problem was what we call contextual awareness. And so it's the ability for a system to understand its environment, context, and perhaps even goals, so that the application experience can adapt to the real world accordingly. In other words, the AI agent inside of the system, or the system, needs to be aware of the real world in an intelligent way, and it needs to adapt the experience based on where you are, what you're doing. Context awareness is a big problem. It's a big scope problem. It's something that doesn't have a solution, but many solutions. So for me, it was just exploring that problem and applying that and building prototypes. But very quickly, for me, it became obvious that this isn't something you solve in a PhD. This is something you have to create many companies, and many years later, an industry would be formed around this problem or this solution, perhaps. And so now what happened was we started a company and we were building an SDK. And for the first few years, we built the software for developers, but we learned very quickly that we wanted to actually build the physical product as well. And the physical product, which in this case happens to be, which we'll get to hopefully later, is a smart glasses. And then, the rest is history. So it was an interesting start. It starts from games, goes into research, into AR, back to hardware.
So I'm curious. So you guys started in 2019. And I'm sure there was like a long development track to get to where you're at now. And just, again, we will get into the product, which is slated for release in the first quarter of 2025. So very soon. But I'm curious, like you started in 2019, did the pandemic have, which I would say in most people's minds, the pandemic lasted maybe 2 years for sure, maybe 2.5 in some minds. Like, did that have an impact on the startup? Like how everything developed?
It probably accelerated it to some extent, because for us, at that stage, we were still doing a lot of research. We had some ideas of what we wanted to build, but no clear product idea. And a lot of that time was spent just research and development. So it was quite helpful to actually have the whole world take some time off. And we ended up just working hard in like a cave. But it was, for us, it was actually quite helpful. It was a good coincidence, I think.
All right, so let's get to it. So I don't have, maybe we'll like flash on the screen specific dates, but this is kind of like my rough, I guess, memory of what has happened. So I'm going to start with a company out of Canada, and these are called, where are these? These are the North Focals.
Yeah.
All right. And these were interesting because they had clip-on shades. You can actually take these off, and then they're clear. And maybe you can't see it, maybe you can. It's like very thick here. And what was interesting about these, again, they, just brief history, North was acquired by Google. I believe it was 2018 that these came out, and they were acquired by Google. We have not heard tell what is going to happen with North, or the fruit of North, but we assume that whatever. There was actually a video, I would say maybe 3 or 4 months ago, where Google demoed some of their AI software, and someone picks up a pair of smart glasses from a desk, and they look somewhat close to these. So with North, what was great is that they weren't just whatever camera glasses or something. In fact, they weren't camera glasses. They were really AR, augmented reality glasses, and you could actually see 2D, not really images, but I would say information. And they also had integration with Amazon. And so you could use these to kind of get directions, weather info, scores, various info. These were great. They actually had brick and mortar stores. I know there was one here in New York and Brooklyn. There was one in Toronto. I think they were trying to do one in LA. And the stores were beautiful. They were on the level of any kind of like, I guess, Apple store that you would see. It was a beautiful setup, very ambitious. Again, this is 2018. No one really is like thinking about smart glasses that much in terms of the public. So that's north. Then again, my dates are a little off here, but then you have Amazon's Echo frames. And these were interesting because they, I would say, in form, they were very similar to the North focals, but the Echo frames were, I would say, kind of like more designed to work with something like Amazon Alexa. It was mostly audio, 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 kind of like, the assistant was helping you through your day, giving you reminders, giving you notifications. I think there was also a Shades version, and there have been subsequent versions of this device that are cooler than what I just showed off. Then I want to talk about these are the weirdest ones I'm probably going to put on. Snaps, the maker of Snapchat. This is Snap's Spectacles 3. And this kind of looks like I'm from some sort of science fiction movie. This was the first version of So Spectacles came out, I want to say 2014, 2015. I may have my dates wrong, but quite some time ago. And the original version of Spectacles were actually quite fun. And, they were camera glasses, and, they did this big hype promotion throughout, the world with these little kiosks. And it was really cool, but it wasn't really, there was no, beyond camera glasses, there was no AR component. And that same thing here. This is basically these are just camera glasses. But I think what Snap tried to do was they tried to be fashion forward. And so this was kind of like part of their way of trying to be fashion forward. But this is, I don't know a ton of people that would, maybe for New York Fashion Week or London Fashion Week, someone might wear these and try to pull them off. But I always found it difficult personally to try to wear these myself. They just didn't fit me well. And I don't know, just kind of weird. Then, and this is, I can peg this as 2021 because I remember during the pandemic, I had great fun riding around the deserted streets of Manhattan on my bike, filming with, these were called, let's see, they're now called Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses. Or I may have that Meta Ray-Ban. But originally these were called Facebook Story.
Oh, right.
Story. Right. I think it was Facebook Stories. And these are, in partnership with Ray-Ban. The vast majority of people that I met when I wore these had no idea that I was wearing smart glasses. Again, this is 2021, where I'm going everywhere with these. I'm filming people. I'm taking pictures. I'm, shooting video. Back then, I think now the video length limit on Meta Ray-Ban, the new version of Meta Ray-Ban, is up to 3 minutes. But back then, I think it was something like 30 seconds. These are by far, to date, these have been my favorite smart glasses. You have audio, notifications, music. You can take calls. And of course, you can take, photo and video. And just to a normal onlooker, they just look like cool glasses. So those are, and they're based on the classic Ray-Ban Wayfarer frame. And this is the latest version of the glasses from Meta. They're now called, Ray-Ban, Meta Ray-Ban smart glasses. All new colors, better cameras, much of the same features. But now there is AI embedded in the smart glasses. And this is kind of, I guess, where we begin to dovetail into the conversation about Phantom and the Journey device. But what I found interesting about these is that, Facebook has spent so much time and energy and money on AI, and to push AI into one of their, I would say, edge products is pretty ambitious, pretty, brave. And I think it's, it's kind of, it points the way for what we're going to see in the coming years. Now, before we get into it, I want to get your thoughts, though, on something that just happened. It's interesting that we're speaking right now. Snap just released Spectacles they call them spectacles, but for those of us who have been following spectacles for years, this is essentially Spectacles 5. Spectacles 4 this is Spectacles 3. For those who don't know, this is Spectacles 3. And then Spectacles 4 was basically, they looked like, I would say, high fashion Balenciaga wraparound shades, like very angular. I actually had a chance to try them out. This is, again, during the pandemic. I believe this is 2021. Representatives from Snap, they're based in California, Los Angeles, but they came to New York and actually had a chance to hang out with the Snap people and try out version 1 of the fully augmented reality Spectacles 4. And it was amazing. I was able to interact with virtual objects, play games. It was a fully, I would say, mixed reality experience. The problem was battery life was terrible. It overheated. The apps were somewhat buggy. But again, that's 2021. So now we're in 2024, and we're just like a couple of days removed from Evan Spiegel releasing basically what is Spectacles 5.
We have been so excited to share these with all of you. So spectacles are so cool that even the tutorial is fun. Snap OS uses natural interaction, so you don't have to learn anything new. You just interact with digital objects the same way that you interact with physical ones. So if you want to select something, you just reach out and pinch to select. So just hold out your palm, tap to open the menu. You can save a lens, exit it, or resume. So Imagine Together uses generative AI, so you can think of almost anything in the world and make it in just a couple of seconds. So let's try imagine a cheeseburger. And imagine a spaceship. Imagine a dancing banana. First, the object renders in 2D. Now we're going to wait a couple seconds for the 3D mesh to render. Let's see. Oh, it looks pretty good. So you can resize it. I'm going to just pass this to my friends here in the front row. There you go.
I've heard a lot of critique that they're definitely not as cool as Spectacles 4. They're bigger. Some people think they look rather unwieldy and dorky. I'm curious, what were your thoughts? I'm assuming you saw the device. What'd you think?
I'm probably going to be the most controversial person about this, but I've observed this industry as you have as well. I'm coming from at least an engineer's perspective as well, and I've followed what they've done in the R&D space. I think this was a product for shareholders. I don't think this is of course, it's not a real consumer product. They've made it, like, as you say, they have the ability to design something more compelling, but they clearly haven't. In fact, they very, I think, intentionally made it look like a dev kit to make sure that this only goes to developers, because they want developers. That's who they want for this product. And even the pricing structure is a strange one. You're paying $99 a month for a 12-month contract. You're basically paying $1.2K for this. It's pretty expensive. Battery life is insane. It doesn't make any sense. So it's a dev kit. And this is something that Apple's done too with the Vision Pro. I think from the very beginning, to me and so many others commentated that the Vision Pro is just a dev kit in disguise. It's just that Apple would never call anything a dev kit, because that's just not how they brand things. But they really want to create a dev kit. And this is exactly what Snap's doing. But at the same time, Snap wants to flex, because they've been acquiring companies like, for example, Wave Optics, which I think is a British company actually. And they've acquired other companies, and they want to show off their intellectual property. So this is one of those products where they're doing two things. They firstly want to show to shareholders, look, we've got incredible tech. And then secondly, they're saying to devs, start building things for our platform. But my opinion is I don't think that's the right strategy. And I actually think that I'm surprised, because I was expecting them to go back to their roots a little bit, to go back to the fashionable minimalist product, like the Meta Ray-Ban, because Meta Ray-Ban's been quite successful. They've sold over 1 million, I think 1.5 million, if I remember correctly. Of course, there's a lot of brand power with Ray-Ban, and that's carrying a lot of that forward. but I think it's become quite clear that if you want a mass market product today, you want to go for the constrained version of this product. You want something that fits in a normal size glasses, something that people would be willing to wear today. And then the futuristic stuff will follow through. But Snap's been very intentional to making this into a dev kit. So that's just my observation, I think.
I totally agree on the Snap take. The glasses, for those of us who've actually used the previous version, Spectacles 4, these are bigger, much bigger, bulkier. They're in no way cool. I think what's not clear to some people is that if you've seen pictures of them, these are transition lenses on the Spectacles 5 device. So when you go outside, they do turn into shades. I think, if I had to guess, part of the reason why they're bigger and bulkier is because the battery life was even worse before. I think now it's 45 minutes for the new version, but it was even worse before, and it overheated. And they're just, like you said, they're just not cool. And it does look like a dev kit. And I absolutely agree with this idea that just, it's a dev kit for what's possible in the future. But if you want a mainstream device, I got to tell you, when I was using the Ray-Ban Stories, and actually it was called Ray-Ban Stories by Facebook. This was before the Meta name change. And I'll tell you straight up, well, actually, when we talked about the history of smart glasses, we didn't go far enough back. 2013 was Google Glass.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the ugly beginning of the non-love affair with the public and AR, because very quickly people thought it was creepy. This is, the iPhone was out and taking, photos in public had become normalized, but the iPhone hadn't been out that long. It was like 2007 when the iPhone came out. Now you're talking 2013. So it's been out long enough, but selfies and cameras everywhere isn't quite normalized just yet in 2013. And so Google Glass was looked at as creepy. What are you wearing on your face? And there was a term called glass hole. And I'm sure people could think about, what that is, a euphemism for. So that's kind of like the ugly beginning of AR wearables. But back to Spectacles 5, one thing that he did demonstrate just a couple of days ago, Evan Spiegel, that was cool, was he showed kind of like the creation of virtual objects using generative AI that you can manipulate on the fly. So we would say something like, create a cowboy frog, create, a cupcake. And it very quickly, I was very impressed how quickly it rendered like a quick image of what he, spoke. And he was able to manipulate it. But again, I agree, it's more dev kit than consumer product. And yeah, the other thing I'm unclear on, and I guess I need to talk to someone at Snap about this, is it basically adds up to $1,200 for the device. But does that mean at the end of the payments it's yours? Like, is there a contract where you have to give it back? What is that? Because I've never seen a purchase where it's kind of like, stretched out like this. But I want you to go a little bit deeper on what you just said about Apple Vision Pro. Here on the 100-Year Podcast, we're big fans of the Apple Vision Pro. I have one here. I love it. I use it, I would say, probably daily. I will admit, I mostly use it as a movie watching device. It's really like having your own home theater. Less so for work, but every now and then I do work in it. Like, so have you used it? Have you sampled it? Do you own one? Like, just give me your overall take on the Apple Vision Pro.
I haven't used it. I haven't even sampled this. So I'm probably behind actually on the Apple Vision Pro specifically. But my view is, I think, Apple's great at building high quality products, and they've really done that with Vision Pro, even with the limitations of the technology today. It is a virtual reality headset in hardware, but it's a mixed reality headset in software. I think, I don't know. It's really, to me, it was always a bit on Apple the way they released it. And here's me speculating a little bit, but I feel like, to me, I was always expecting Apple to do something a little bit more consumer facing, a little bit more. Even today, like, Apple Vision Pro has not sold that many units. And I know this was not intended to be a huge hit, but it was actually less than I think a lot of people expected. So there are some interesting takeaways from that. I'm not sure what Apple will do next, but there seems to be a bit of experimentation from Apple as well. They want to figure out, I think, from just audience and response, what are the use cases, because it's not clear. Movie watching is clearly, I think, number one, if I had to guess, and if not, number two, because the other one is using it as a display extension or workstation, basically. But it's clearly not intended for like going outside or walking around with it much. It's quite heavy. It's more of a Mac than it is like a glasses or anything like this. It's more of like a tool for productivity, and then sometimes being able to watch a movie on it. Feels to me like a spatial computer version of a Mac, rather than a spatial computer version of an iPod. Where I would say, for instance, like if Apple came out with smart glasses, it would be trying to recreate the iPod moment first. Whereas where they come out with a VR glass or headset, it feels like they're trying to recreate a Mac moment, it was a slow start. If you remember, Mac was a slow start as well. I think it's a little bit like a Mac. So yeah, I'm still surprised though. I feel like it was very on Apple. That's just my view. I think it was really on Apple the way they did that.
Yeah, I agree with you about kind of the odd rollout from Apple. I think within the AR industry, a lot of us thought, okay, when Apple finally, there were rumors for years, and we thought when Apple finally enters the space, game over. Then the smart glasses race or war truly begins. And a lot of people, I think, were surprised, even though there were rumors of like its form factor for at least a year out before it actually released. A lot of people were surprised because it was very clear immediately that this wasn't necessarily a mainstream device, not just from the price, which is, $3,500, which is out of the price range of most consumers, but, the weight, the form factor, the fact that you can walk outside with it and walk around, but it's not really practical. I would say it's not safe. What if it starts raining? What neighborhoods do you want to walk around with $3,500 on your face, and feel like it's okay? But I think the marketing hack that they used was calling it Pro. I've rarely seen Apple release their first device and call it something Pro. It's usually here's the Apple something, not here's the Apple something Pro. And so I think that's their marketing hack and wink, wink, nudge to tell people this is the high-end version. And yes, in a way it's a dev kit, but it's Pro. So only go into this, territory if, you're, kind of like pro level, ready for experimentation. And the non-pro version will be more affordable, maybe more palatable from a mainstream perspective. But what I'm curious about is like, what do you think is the, I guess, if Apple had done the, I guess, camera glasses partnership with Ray-Ban, where do you think Ray-Ban smart glasses would be right now if it was by Apple instead of by Meta?
I don't know if Apple would do that partnership. That's probably my view.
Oh, okay.
That thing that I think Apple wants to own the brand for glasses, and I think they're thinking of how to reinvent the eyewear industry. Actually, like I think Apple wouldn't go to just sort of participate; they'd go to take over. And the eyewear industry is completely owned by pretty much one company. Maybe we tend to sort of talk about it in fun ways, but it is a bit of a mafia. So and Meta Meta would love that partnership because it didn't have the best brand, especially with the previous sort of stuff that happened with Facebook and antitrust and all of this and that. But with Apple, I think Apple would want to actually probably come in as a reinventor of the eyewear industry, and I just don't think they figured out how exactly they would do that, which is why I think they've selected to go from the other direction, which is the maximalist direction, and work their way down to glasses rather than start with glasses and work their way up. Meta's going from both directions. Meta's clearly doing a bit of both, and they'll try and meet in the middle. But I think Apple has got a lot of sort of potential strategies we just don't know about yet. And I just want to say something. Like, I think one thing that sticks out to me about all of this is, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about journey lens. I might be getting ahead, but for me, the thing that's really interesting is today most of our time is spent on smartphones with social media. Like, in terms of what we do on smartphones, almost all of it is really on social media. And the thing that really drives me crazy is that in social media, the incentives are broken. And the reason why I say that is, if you look at any social media platform, they're all fundamentally advertising platforms. Google isn't even like an advertising platform, right? So is Snap, so is Meta. And so their incentive is to maximize your attention, because that's how they generate revenue. That's the biggest stream of revenue, ads. And so that incentive, I think, drives some real sort of, it leads to really weird and perhaps some bad outcomes, because your incentive is to create something that is quite addictive in nature. You're trying to make people stay hooked. The more time they spend scrolling, the more money you make. That's just a problem of incentives, not necessarily of intent, but incentives. So Apple doesn't have that problem though, because Apple isn't a advertising company. Their biggest revenue isn't advertising, but all the competitors are. So Meta building Ray-Ban, we're working with Ray-Ban and building the Meta Ray-Bans. It is, I think a lot of people feel this intrinsically. Maybe they haven't thought hard about this, but the thing that makes people worried about that as a product, and I'm one of them, is that if they dominate the market, if Meta dominates the market, those incentives will drive them in terms of behavior to find ways for you to stay hooked and maybe even sell your eye tracking data. Like, there's so much they can do because it's all in the benefit of driving profit for attention, like to get that attention, and then that's how they get money. So Apple doesn't do that. Apple sells you products, and they would sell it at premium. They have no problem doing that. They will even try to keep you inside the ecosystem, but at least they're not sort of like an advertising company in disguise. They're actually a product company. So I think Apple sees this as the fundamental problem in our maybe this, at least in this decade, if not maybe even in this century, when it comes to digital experiences, is what are the incentives that drives the future of internet? What are the incentives that drives the future of computer interaction? And right now, somewhere around a decade ago, these incentives, I think around a decade ago, took over, where now most of the internet has the same incentive. Any website you go on, most websites today are somewhat of an advertising platform, which means they have the same incentive. So the internet is just far more distracting and addictive today than it was only even a decade ago. And that to me is really a big issue. And I think maybe Apple might be tackling the same problem, but we definitely are. That's why we built the Journey Lens.
I absolutely agree with you. I think that's one of Apple's maybe two secret weapons with these kind of, emerging smart devices. One, as you said, they're not relying on attention and advertising. They're just, focused on great use experience, right? The other is, kind of touches upon something you hinted at with Facebook/Meta, which is data security and trust. Apple has had a couple of high-profile cases where they attempted to defend the privacy of a user, particularly with iPhones. And so I think, whatever the truth is, because when governments get involved, data gets, they get their data, by hook or by crook. But at least in terms of optics and general stated policy, I think the public generally seems to trust Apple a bit more, whether, for good or for bad, whether that's, well-placed trust or not. And particularly if we're talking about something you wear all day and is, it can see your home, the bathroom, your loved ones, maybe you forgot to take them off while you were opening your bank account. And now, your bank account information is right there in front of your smart glasses. So I think for some people that makes Apple, a safer possible prospect. I did want to just kind of comment on what if scenario. I think if Apple had paired with Ray-Ban, you'd see these smart glasses literally everywhere. I mean, with version 2 of these glasses, it's getting traction. You're finally seeing it catch on, specifically, I think, because Meta added the ability to stream from Instagram. There are more colors. The marketing push is bigger than the first version. Also, again, the first version came out kind of during the pandemic. And, if you're not really walking around engaging with other people because we were on lockdown, it's, there's limited use for that kind of device. So I think if Apple had been paired up, it would be more popular. However, I do agree, although, with the branding, that Apple would want to, I guess, own the style and the crafting of the frames. However, we do have to think about, their partnerships with like Hermes for the Apple Watch. And I believe they maybe had like a Tiffany. There's like a couple of tie-ups that they had with various luxury brands. So yeah, I agree. They probably want to own the styling and all of that, but there's room for them to work with luxury brands as well. All right, let's finally get to it. We've teased it enough. Let's talk about the Journey. Again, it's called the Journey Lens. It is selling, or it will sell for, I believe, $195. And there will be, and this is kind of what I want you to explain to me a little bit later. There will be kind of like a monthly charge between, I think, $7 and $18. I may have the pricing wrong. You can explain that later. But I want to get into what that pricing is for. But in the main, tell us like what the Journey Lens does.
Sure. I think the easiest way to describe it is that the Journey Lens is probably the world's first smart glasses that's designed to help improve your focus and well-being. So going back to everything we just talked about, it's trying to figure out what are the biggest problems with smartphones and addiction with smartphones, and the incentives again are one of the biggest issues. So there's two reasons we've done this. One reason is that we just want to build a really great product. We want to build something that would actually be useful as a pair of smart glasses. Some of the things we've learned from Meta Ray-Ban, some of the things we've learned from other products in this space, applying those lessons to making a really good product, where it's lightweight, it's comfortable, it looks good. Like there are a lot of things you have to do right to get adoption. And at the same time, the other reason why we did this is because we just want to have presence in the market, because we fear that if Meta just has almost 100% of the market share, then that can't be a good outcome for us or for anyone really. So it's to create a product that has very different incentives. The way it works, I mean, they'll just tell you what the product does and how it works. So the Journey Lens connects with your smartphone. There's a companion app that you download, and through this companion app, you can choose which apps you also want to use with the glasses. So for instance, I can go into the app and I can choose calendar, email, maybe Uber, some other apps that, like, I don't know, some messaging apps like maybe WhatsApp or something. And then I'm able to access those apps without having to take my phone out of my pocket, thus trimming down the need of getting distracted. Because a lot of the times you pull your phone out just to do something very simple and productive. Like you might want to do a Google search, but you open the Google app and there's already a news feed, and that news feed sucks you in, and then the next thing you know, you're doom scrolling. And so we found that like nearly 10% of the time, those small productive moments lead to doom scrolling or lead to distractions. So we thought, okay, can we trim down the need for you to take your phone out of your pocket, just like that few instances? And that's already doing a lot of good, right? The next thing is that it's also what I call, it's like a fitness tracker for your mind. And what that means is it's the world's first smart glasses that have built-in biosensors that sit on the nose pad, which measures your subtle eye movement so that it can understand whether you're focused or distracted. So a lot like Oura Ring or some other fitness or wearable devices in the market. What this does is that it gives you an insight into your attention, and it helps you build healthier habits. It's called, what the feature is called, Focus Compass. So for example,
I love that. That's awesome.
It's something that we really wanted to do for ourselves. So, you spend a lot of time, and from a biology standpoint, like for me, what I've realized is reality is what you pay attention to. So we spend today probably if not most of our waking hours on some kind of computing device, whether it's smartphone or desktop or so on. The thing that's really interesting is that if those platforms are, again, as I say, incentivized to maximize your attention, you might, in some sense, you're losing agency. You're losing the agency to decide what to pay attention to, because a lot of what we do, we just scroll, we get sucked in, and so our attention is not in our control. This product is trying to tell you how to build better focus. For example, how to build better sustained focus. So it will pick up on the activity. So if you start reading, it can pick up that as an activity, just like where fitness trackers can detect if you're cycling or running. This can tell, oh, you've started reading. And what it will do is that will give you goals. It will say, here's how to improve your sustained focus. Read 15 minutes more tomorrow. And so I can do that, and I can see how well I did. Did I maintain sustained focus, or did I get a little bit distracted? And so it's helping you build that muscle to build your focus. But it also has this really cool feature, my favorite. It's called Life Journal, which is it's got a camera, so you can use the camera for first-person view photography and so on. But because of AI, you can do some really fun things. So what we've done is if you allow the device to do this, the device can nudge you. So the AI can nudge you, and if it detects that you're maybe traveling or somewhere out and about, it will simply say, hey, take a moment to reflect on this moment. And so it can then take an image, and then it will give you a prompt. It will say, what are your thoughts on this winter morning? And then you can say, you know what, it's pretty cold, but I really want to get a cup of coffee. And then what will happen is you have an album of first-person imagery and your spoken thoughts. And so you're journaling from first-person view. It's a really interesting experience. One of those things is hard to explain, but when you try it for a couple of days, it gives you a really different perspective of just like the physical reality. So this
it's passive journaling. It changes it from a job where you're kind of like maybe having to think about, putting together this life journal and then later edit it. It just like makes the AI helps you just seamlessly create this. That's a great idea. There are not a lot of, I think, new ideas in AR, VR, mixed reality, smart glasses. That's the first time I've heard that one. That's a great new idea.
I'd love to get your thoughts if you try it. So it's cool. It's fun. It's really fun. It really helps. And journaling's shown to help, with, it's a really good mindfulness practice, honestly. It's a really good way to engage in mindfulness and help with being more intentional. It's a great way to basically create, almost like the way we think about it is journaling in some sense is it's a way to narrate your life. So if you're narrating your life, you're creating better intentions of yourself. So you're able to say, today, this is my intention. And that practice really helps, again, build that muscle. So you have better agency. You can actually decide what you want to do that day. By just reflecting, by just being able to just pay attention to some of the subtle things in front of you, and then be able to actually talk about them. But it's also, as you would expect, journaling also can be used as a note-taking experience as well. So you can just walk around and take notes. It's quite efficient. You get the information you need. And so you also have the AI assistant capabilities that you'd probably come to expect from these smart glasses.
So what's the memory on the ability? And is it, I'm assuming it's photo and video, and what's the storage, I guess, memory?
Okay, this is an interesting point. So this product is designed to pair with your phone. The reason why we've managed to make this extremely affordable, it's only $195, but there's a companion app. So this companion app is where your data is actually stored. It's not stored on the glasses. The glasses is just acting as the sort of interpreter. So taking the information and it's passing to the companion app, and it's being stored on the app. And so then you can store the images on your phone. You can take those videos and store on your phone. The notes go straight to your phone. Everything goes to your phone because the reason we've done this is because we're not trying to pretend that this is going to replace your phone. In fact, no smart glasses in the next couple of years at least would. I would go so far as to say I don't think smart glasses ever will replace your smartphone. In the same way that smartphones don't replace your laptop and laptops don't replace your desktop, they just create new categories. I think smart glasses are just a new category. So we treat the smartphone as a hub for the glasses, and it's a wireless hub. So your phone is with you. As long as you've got your phone with you, you can experience all these amazing things. So the memory is kind of there to process the information and pass it to the phone.
Okay, well,
as much memory
well, then I guess the more important question is, what is the recording limit in terms of time?
I'll tell you something. I think at this point, it's probably going to be more than 30 seconds for sure. I can't give you the final answer. So we'll see in the next couple of months what we get to. But it will be interesting because we've got some unique ideas of how to do the recording as well.
And let's just kind of talk about really quickly, I guess, the technology, like for displaying, like for many, I guess, high-end, very expensive mixed reality devices, like the Magic Leap and others, you have waveguides and, but then for something like what I mentioned earlier, the North Focals, it's kind of more of a reflective experience in terms of, it's not really a waveguide in terms of, what we talk about with Magic Leap. What's the actual technological method you use to display the information?
We're using a free-form prism optic with micro OLED. So it's a micro OLED display, and then that's reflected into your eye through a prism, which is a simpler optical solution versus like the waveguide. But what we've done is we've intentionally placed that display in the top right corner of your vision, because what we found is that even with the best waveguide technology today, when the display is off, it's quite irritating to look through. You get a little bit of diffraction, you get some reflections, you get strange color, you see a little green, you see those chromatic effects. There's a lot of things that make it difficult to wear the device when the display is off. So by placing the display in the top right corner of your vision, you're actually basically, when it's off, you don't really notice it. You're looking through the lens and it's a clear lens, or it's a shaded lens. But this prism optic again is quite bright. So the display itself is about, I want to say 4,000 nits. And then there is the prism itself, which is depending on how much light gets into your eye, but there is an efficiency usually. So some of that, most if not most of that light will get to your eye. But it's one of the more brighter displays we'll see probably in the market. And it's lightweight, so you got to figure out what are the priorities, what are you trying to create. If you're trying to create an immersive product, like you were talking about Magic Leap, the intention of Magic Leap is to be an immersive product, is to be a spatial computer. Things like field of view matter more because it's the larger, the more believable. But with devices like ours, it's not about immersive experience. It's about information. It's about displaying something when you need it. And so for that, you don't need a large field of view. You need something that is tucked away just so that you can see something and you can interact with this device silently. So you're not always expecting audio feedback. You can get visual feedback as well.
That's a great point about field of view. In the Spectacles 5, or rather the Spectacles 4 and Spectacles 5 being the one they just demonstrated, even when Evan kind of looks around to show the AI, generative AI renderings, the field of view, the limited field of view is very apparent. And it's amazing. It's an amazing demo, but it kind of breaks the experience. And field of view is one of those, I guess, choke points in mixed reality. That's something that I guess Microsoft with HoloLens has always been trying to chase, and many other players. I think for someone like myself, what the Journey lens is quite obvious. But I think, we've talked about so many devices. We need to make it dead simple clear. So it is not capable of showing 3D virtual devices, or sorry, 3D virtual objects that you can touch and manipulate, like what we saw in the Snap demo. These are, and correct me if I'm wrong, 2D, I guess, imagery. This is 2D imagery. And I don't think it's full color, right? It's like monochromatic,
No,
right?
it's full color. It's full
It
color.
is full color.
Yeah.
Okay. But it is 2D.
Yeah, it's exactly as you say. It isn't intended to be an immersive product, so it's not got the three-dimensional, 3D models that you could interact with. It's not the point of the product. It's there for information. So you're going to get graphics, you're going to get text, and some other cool things which we've hidden in there. I won't say now, but you'll see with some demo videos that we're going to share soon.
What about, let's talk about like kind of, I guess, the audio component.
Okay.
Is the audio spatial? Can I listen to music and podcasts? Can I take phone calls? Like what are the other features beyond the, the visual information?
Good question. When we looked at some of the more successful features of some of the more successful products in this space, such as the Meta Ray-Ban, I think we found, a lot of people enjoy using them as just a regular pair of AirPods, to, as an audio device, taking calls. We've had a lot of people tell us that that's one of their favorite things, and we've tried it ourselves. So we know like these are things that really are good at it, that are really good about this product. So we've incorporated the things that you'd want as like the baseline in there. So you can take calls, you can listen to music. These are just nice, a great piece of audio device you have. But at the same time, and of course AI. Let's not forget, like there's almost now an expectation that there's an LLM experience in these devices, which we made sure that was there from the very beginning. But also there's a display, and that's kind of a new thing because a lot of people, I think, a lot of people who buy this will be the first time they're trying smart glasses. Maybe they've tried Ray-Bans, but this will be probably the first time they've used anything with a transparent display. And so this is going to be interesting for a lot of folks who've never tried AR the way we have. So their expectation isn't going to be, can I, go into a virtual world? Their expectation is, can I use it? Can I be productive with it? And then more importantly, can this actually improve my focus? Can it actually make me, can this improve my sense of awareness about my focus, about my attention? Because that's the point, in my view, that's the point of a product, really.
So you touched on the AI component. So talk to me about, I guess, is there a dedicated assistant? Does that assistant have a name? And what exactly does the AI do? Kind of run down the feature list of what how I guess I can use voice to interact with it. I think from the demo we saw that. So what exactly can I do with the AI?
So the AI, there's two main things you can do. The AI, there is of course AI, the vision AI we will expect to see, and there is just a smart companion, just being able to talk to the AI and get assistance. But the main feature of the AI is that we've built technology that sits above an LLM. So we can use any LLM. At the moment, we're using GPT-4o. We treat the LLM as a reasoning engine, but what we've built on top are tools like search, being able to dedicate, so you can ask a question and the system will infer or decide whether your question requires an action or a response. So for example, if I say, hey, I'd love to go back to the station, the system is able to understand your intention by that question. So we've got a system that basically decides, oh, the best route to action is that we just make an Uber request for you. So it will come back to you and say, would you like to call Uber? So we've blended the sort of latest and greatest stuff we've seen with LLMs with a bit more traditional, actually, stuff that you expect from a non-LLM agent. And so by merging those two things, you can actually get the AI assistant to make API calls for you and perform something for you. So there's search. There's a really cool feature we've built called silent queries, which is the ability for you to actually interact with an AI assistant without speaking to it, because it's quite awkward sometimes to be like, if I'm sitting in a train, I don't want to talk to an AI assistant in a crowded train. It's a little bit awkward. So we've built a system called silent queries. The way it works is that you just nudge the device and then it predicts what is the most likely thing that you want to do next. So if I'm in a crowded train and I'm listening to, let's say, an audiobook, and on my calendar, I'm going to go work or whatever, if I tap on the thing, it will suggest, oh, here's your next station that you want to get off. And you choose. So I can then look at the thing that I want to select by it does have head tracking. So you can actually look towards the direction of the thing you want to select, and I tap, and then I'm able to then select that, and then it will give me the answers for that. This is to encourage use case even when you don't want to speak to an assistant, or if it's just loud environment. And I think this is going to be a really interesting feature as well.
I'm excited because I feel like we're at the dawn of a new era for not just, I guess, technology and AI, but just wearables in general. It's my belief that in terms of AI, the primary, like, I think I did research one time, and I think I saw something like optometrists, at least here in the US, said something like between 60 and 70% of the population wear like some form of prescription glasses. And I know that, one of the main features of the Journey lens is that, they're prescription friendly. But I feel like, there are so many ventures trying to put AI in this or that. I really do think that, eyeglass frames are one of the, I guess, the best case scenarios for AI, like mobile AI assistance and use cases. But I'm curious, what do you think about this other class of device where, like, I guess the Humane pin, the Rewind pendant, like these kind of like Star Trek communicator badges that you put on your chest or hang around your neck? Like, what do you think about that class of device? Like, particularly with regard to embedded AI, on the go.
I think there's going to be a lot of experimentation. It's very hard to say, which form factor will win and which won't, because it's not just the form factor, it's the way the AI works. And so there's going to be a lot of experimentation. But I do think that smart glasses have a particular edge, which is that unlike those other form factors, with smart glasses, they fail gracefully, which basically means that when they run out of batteries, they're just a regular pair of glasses, and that's already a normal thing. Like, people wear glasses, right? Whereas I don't know anyone who wears a pin. So when that runs out of battery, it's dead weight. And so you have this new thing to worry about, and it's really hard to change human behavior, right? It's really, really hard. Think about how long glasses have been in this world. The centuries we've had these. So I think that's why glasses are really the winning, or at least to me, I think that's why they've got the edge as a form factor.
Yeah, the idea of wearing essentially a brooch just to get the AI functions is not a sexy proposition for a lot of people. I guess to round out, talk to me, and I kind of alluded to this earlier. Talk to me about this subscription that you mentioned kind of in the materials for the device. Like, what's the price and what is that for?
So there is no required subscription to use the product, unlike, let's say, the AI pin. So you can buy the product. We can pre-order it now. It's $195. And you're not required to pay a subscription to use the product, which means to get AI assistant, the AI vision, just interacting with the product. But the membership is it's very similar to fitness wearables, which you get a product, let's say like the Aura Ring, and you pay a membership. And the reason why you pay that membership is because you're getting recurring value for improving your health and well-being. And similar to that, there's a membership to be able to improve your focus and attention. And so the way that works is it starts, as you correctly got the pricing, starts at $7 and a month. And then the way it works is that you get access to Focus Compass, which is the feature for improving your focus. You get Life Journal as well, and some other features that we're bringing out very soon. So I think the membership is more for us to be able to provide that extra recurring value for customers who want to benefit from the unique sensing capabilities of this device, but it's not required to use this as a pair of smart glasses for taking calls, for all of that. It comes out of the box. So it's a bit of both.
So last question. You mentioned that you're, I guess, putting various functions on top of the, I guess, ChatGPT 4.0 model. About, I guess, 4 or 5 months ago, there was a rumor, which seems to be somewhat substantial, or substantiated, that Johnny Ive, the former design chief of Apple, may be working with OpenAI, the parent company that puts out ChatGPT, on some sort of device that would embed the AI in the device. Do you have any concerns about that? Like, is there any kind of like future proofing that you're trying to do? I'm just curious, like, how you see that.
Um, you can't you can't be sure. It's a rumor, but I do know that it's probably real. Um, you know, it's no one knows what the product is going to be. Like, we don't even know if it's glasses, if it's necklace. Who knows? It could just be a fashion experiment. Um, I'm not sure, but I think that whatever Johnny Ive works on is going to be interesting. So I hope I just hope it comes out and it's a great product. I don't know. We'll see.
Along those lines, in terms of like future proofing what you guys are doing, have you explored using open source AI versus
Yeah,
something, from OpenAI?
of course. And I think a lot of businesses that rely on GPT probably have an element of backup, because it's hard in this day and age, especially if you're building a hardware product, to rely on one model, especially a model like ChatGPT's, where it's a completely closed. So yeah, we've experimented with open source models, and even other closed source. We've experimented. Thing is, I think a lot of my view is this. My view is that like most of these models are sort of, it's like a race to the bottom in some sense. They're all becoming cheaper and cheaper, faster as well. It's becoming a bit of a commodity in some, like AI it really is like a commodity. It's not, the value isn't the model itself, it's the stuff you build around it. Even GPT itself, if you actually pay attention to like what they've announced and done in the last about year or so, is they're not building better and better models. What they're doing is they're making slightly more efficient. They're pushing the envelope on, speed or cost or scale, perhaps. And that's actually what's really helpful for these types of products to emerge, is you want a faster, more reliable AI assistant rather than necessarily it being more advanced. I think we've reached a point where it's so advanced that it can interpret your questions really well. And that's actually really helpful for these types of products. But I'm not worried that you're going to suddenly see a new sort of like new types of AI models that change the game significantly. The moment the multimodal AI systems came out, I think that's when we basically set this new standard, and not much will change in my view in the next 2 years. I think we'll see incremental improvements, but I think a lot of the gain has come, and it's going to be harder to see the next phase of, unless we hit some new sort of discovery in AI. Like, there needs to be something new that kind of pushes the envelope again. But with regards to current architectures, it seems like we've reached that point where we've got majority of the gain. And then from here, it's like, how do you build systems around it to make these things useful and valuable as a product or service rather than the model itself. So regardless of what model you use, I think they'll all kind of have somewhat equal value and experience. In fact, it's becoming really hard to figure out what more. You could try this experiment: is if you load these models and ask the same question from them and compare them, you could do a blind test, and not that many people can figure out which model is actually responding with which question, with which answer. It's really hard to figure out the difference, unless you're like a pro user, perhaps. But
right. I was gonna say, yeah. Like, there's some, at least for a while, there was a distinct difference between Anthropic's Claude and GPT, but GPT 4.0. But that just got updated, and now I guess the gap is a little closer, so it's a little harder to tell. But I agree, your average user probably wouldn't be able to tell. Look, this has been an amazing conversation, kind of like, I think, a mini education, not just on smart glasses, but AI in, I guess, wearable mobile devices. Again, the device is called the Journey Lens. It comes out in the first quarter of 2025, so just a few months from now. Subscription not necessary. You can still use it with your smartphone for various functions, but if you want kind of the value added treats and tricks and I guess optimization, life optimization features, you can subscribe. And do we have a price? Is there a fixed subscription price yet? Is that still kind of being?
It starts at $7 a month. That's the starting
Okay.
price, and we've got some tiers above that.
And the website is phantom.io. Do I have that right?
Phantomtech.io.
Phantomtech.io. Farbod, I appreciate you joining us. We're always happy to have someone from London, one of my favorite cities. Well, not London, Cambridge, but same thing to us Americans. Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy to have you join us. Thank you. And is there any last I don't know, I feel like I don't want to rush you out of the door. Is there any last message with regard to everything we talked about that you kind of want to deliver to listeners and viewers?
Yeah, I think for me, the only thing I'd say is question the incentives. That if you're building a product or if you're buying a product, it's really incentives drive behavior. And so when we look at the market for at things like smart glasses and generally speaking, the next generation of computing, we really want to make sure that those products have the right incentives to build, better platforms for us that help us, not distract us, not make us less well. So incentives are important, and I'll say that's probably the most important thing to us at this point with building Journey Lens.
Agreed. You can, as for 100-Year Podcast, you can check us out at 100year.com to check out previous episodes of the podcast. You can check us out also on YouTube, where if you are watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe, as they always say, but it really is important to let us know which episodes hit. And also, if you want to read the newsletter, which is called the 100-Year Lens, you can go to Substack, and it's 100year.substack.com. Again, one more time for Farbod, it is phantomtech.io, and it's coming first quarter of 2025. Farbod, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And we will see you next time.